Welcome to Booked All Night Season 2. Each week, Jess, Katie, and Maggie launch into new worlds, discover amazing characters, and bring you the best bookish discussions under the stars. We're a cozy little corner of the internet, so be sure to leave a comment and join the polls after each episode. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Alright, my little Libranauts, grab a seat, grab a book, and join us as we explore some new pages. Before we dive into today's episode, we want to provide a brief trigger warning. This episode discusses topics that may be distressing for some listeners. We encourage you to take care of yourself and skip this episode if you feel it may be triggering. Your well-being is important to us. Thank you for listening. So it starts with obviously Gideon's not going to die, right? It picks right back up when his execution...
Oh, right. We stopped at 50.
Yeah, we stopped at 50. And 51 is just today, Gideon would die. Except, no, he won't. Because Gideon's literally the only character without plot, without plot armor, right? Like, Alex didn't have it, and the Witch Queens didn't have it, and Kestrel didn't have it, and Nicholas Creed didn't have it, but Gideon and Ruhn cannot die.
Which is very ironic for the way that these next couple of chapters are going to go.
Is it because literally, like, every 5 chapters, they're almost about to be executed?
Yeah.
They're either going to be executed, or if it's a Ruhn's point of view, she's going to be sexually assaulted. That's it. Because every single living thing with a penis leaning straightward wants to rape Ruhn. Every single one. We saw it on the boat. We saw there are so many chapters. There's not so much that happens. There's so many chapters, and it just spreads all of this out. Yeah. And I needed everything to be much closer. And I needed Cressida, especially, to be on the page much more in this entire book. Right? She shows up in the beginning, and it's like a really strong opening for her, because she catches Gideon, and Gideon's like, please kill me. Please kill me before she does anything. Please kill me. And Ruhn walks out, and then Cressida tortures him, and we see all of that. And it's like, okay, she's batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And she's insane, and everybody listens to her. Okay, she's forced to be reckoned with. And then we get on the boat, and we don't think about her again.
Not for like 72 chapters.
She's
just sort of this like amorphous shadow hanging over their heads. And they're like, oh, what do we do about Cressida? But, you know.
She's just rain clouds in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And then a lot of the information that we get, little information, right? Like Ruhn using the whistle to summon Lady is a really great example of what I mean by like this little information. Is not information that we're shown, but it's information that's like, oh, that happened last chapter, but the other point of view didn't know it. And it's got some real like playground logic to it, right? Where it's like, haha, I've escaped your prison. Yeah. Oh, but I shot you with my gun. Oh, but I have a special cape, and the cape blocks bullets. Oh, but my bullets are special and they pierce through magic. Yeah, but the only bullet that can pierce through magic is silver. Yeah, well, when my bullets hit the air, they turn to silver. And so I actually got you. That's all it feels like for the next 30 chapters.
Yep.
I was so disappointed with this from, I'm going to say, chapter 40 onward.
Yeah. I think I was disappointed from when we didn't get enough time on the Arcadia with the two of them together.
I could live with that disappointment if the back half of the book lived up to what Heartless Hunter and the front couple chapters did. But this just...
Yeah, but it was the kickstart to everything just spiraling downwards and getting worse and worse the further down we went.
It really was. And there's also, as it comes to all the action in this back part, I have like a whole list, man. I got pages of things that I am upset about. So the whole back half of this, where we could have action, we end up getting telling. And this is the epitome of showing versus telling, right? I'm not talking about the moon and it glittering on the water. I mean, we're leading up to a big rebellion and a battle and an invasion, and there's this army of witches that they keep saying is the ghost army because they can't shoot them because the witches have magical plot armor and so they can't be shot. And the only line we get is the witches took the palace easily.
Yeah. That was just so disappointing after all of the buildup to, oh, Cressida's coming, she's got an army, it's going to be a bloodshed, and we just hard cut to them in the throne room, and they're, oh, it was easy. And that was just...
It was easy everybody bows to Cressida, period. Like,
Yeah.
and then Seraphine and Ruhn are talking, and Seraphine drops the, well, if Cressida were weakened somehow. And immediately I was like, well, obviously they're going to kill Ruhn, right? It's worry that she has everywhere, that people are going to find out she's the heir and they're going to kill her. And I feel like we've known since the moment that we knew canonically that Ruhn was the heir, that Ruhn had to die.
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't a surprise. Like, I'm not spoilers, right? This is a discussion all the way to the end. Obviously, she dies at the end. Gideon shoots her and watches her die, and he's like, oh.
Like, we knew, but it still felt so cheap.
Yep.
And it did not feel satisfying. I was not emotional at all. I cried like 3 times in Heartless Hunter, and not a single tear was shed this entire book.
Right? Like, when Alex died, I actually, like, covered my mouth, like, oh no, Alex.
Yeah.
Because, I don't cry. Card-carrying, Heartless Monster Club. But I don't think there was anything here that let me get emotional about any of these characters. Yeah. And there is a lot to deal with. Like, she's just introducing them left and right. All right, so Harrow is captured and Ruhn's about to save her. Who asks her? Oh, it's Juniper, the daughter that she was in love with from the family that sold her. Good thing that we're meeting her, but meeting her does confirm that, like, her parents just said she sold her, and so she didn't know she was in the basement.
Right.
Okay, cool. So why do you hate her? That's obviously not her fault. So then we have, like, luckily Ruhn's there, but also luckily Ruhn can go into the prison because Ruhn saw a map of it 2 months ago and remembers it exactly. I would have preferred if, like, Ruhn remembered where the map was and went looking for it to be like, okay, I'm going to get in there to go find Harrow. But not I suddenly have future sight and an eidetic memory.
Yeah. It felt like there were so many easy layups given throughout this entire story, and every single one of them was a whiff, or was like you cheating to try to get to it. And it just did not feel satisfying. It did not feel fun. It was the entire time I'm just rolling my eyes and sighing, and I'm like, all right, let's get on with it. I just want to find the end. Like, that's it. Like, the enjoyment for the book stopped a third of the way through.
Yeah.
And that's so disappointing, because as a reader, you want to love the book. You want to have something to obsess over and to spout and, scream about to the heavens about. And it's so disappointing when something that had so much potential just flatlines.
And also, as a writer, I don't want to learn from things that I didn't like, right? Yeah. My toolbox and my book of things to, like, keep in mind as a writer should not be, don't do this. It should be majority, you should do these things. This is a great place to relearn about doing that. This was a fun read. Look at the setup here. Not, wow, this really, like, dropped the ball about 30 chapters into it and never picked it back up. And you should not do anything like that.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that I wrote down on page 320, I can't read my own handwriting. Right after she shoots Soren, right? Because Soren comes out and he's like, oh, my dear, you're still alive. And she's like, yeah, listen, Cressida was never going to let you have me because she's got to kill me for this ritual. And he's like, well, I'm going to get what I'm owed. And he starts to rip all of her clothes off because everybody that sees Ruhn wants to have sex with her.
With or without her consent.
Yeah, she's basically Link from the Zelda games. Every single female that sees him just wants him. And she shoots him, his blood's pooling out, she casts an arcana spell. And her narration specifically says, normally she would worry about corruption, but she hadn't killed Soren to cast an arcana spell. She killed him in self-defense, and her magic knew the difference. And I got mad about this because all we've had so far is that in order to use someone's blood, especially for an arcana spell, you have to have their permission. There is nothing about the way in which you killed them. It was just that you had killed them and it would corrupt you. So I hated this retcon.
Yes.
And it's one of the bigger things that felt like the playground logic where it was like, oh, well, the magic knows the difference. No, you have not established in any way, shape, or form that the magic knows the difference.
Nope.
And this would be a prime time that she casts that and risks the corruption because of everything that's going on, which would have fit better with Ruhn's character than suddenly being afraid of everything.
Yep.
And look, I get it. She's got a bunch of scars on her back. Somebody just tried to sexually assault her. Everybody's trying to kill her every single place that she goes. She's got reason to. But everything that we have established up until this point is that Ruhn is a fighter and Ruhn is recklessly brave. And then, for the next 30 chapters, Ruhn is a helpless little girl and she has to be saved over and over and over again.
That kind of brings up, though, like, how much of it is a change in character, part of the character's journey, and how much of it is just, well, I need to make the main love interest swoon worthy so he can swoop in and save her, or you know, have people rooting for someone who comes in to save her when she, for the last like book and a half, has been very much self-reliant, self-saving. She has been able to get herself out of many tricky situations. But now it's like everything has gone to shit and she just has closed her eyes against it and is like, oh, I'm just if I don't see it, it's not there. I don't have to handle it. And it's just sort of frozen.
Yeah.
But like, yes, so she's traumatized. Everyone wants to kill her. She's been beaten to an inch of her life, and that can be terrifying, of course. Speaking as a person who's never been in that particular situation before where I was whipped nearly to death, but who has the imagination of, like, it feels like a reasonable shift, but it was not done well.
Right. Like, what I want to see here, what I think the shift should have been is that Ruhn becomes more reckless, right? Because everything that has happened to Ruhn, she's been like, oh, you're going to give me false information? I'm going to give everybody false information at the party and screw you out of this whole thing. Like, there has been a reaction to things. There has been quick wit to things. And there has been this very defiant, almost pathologically so, urge to not be the loser in any situation. And in this situation, she very readily accepted it. I don't think we saw any sort of fight from her after she got whipped.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get that, right? She, as we were saying, she was whipped. This is obviously traumatic, but this character doesn't go down without a fight, and this character just kind of rolled over.
Yeah.
I think her reaction should have been the opposite, right? Where it's like, oh, here comes Cressida, and she just smacks her in the face, and because she's just like, oh, well, what are you going to do? You can't kill me yet because we're not near your sisters.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like it feels like the Ruhn who passed out after using her own blood to counterspell the curse
that she just found seconds ago.
And immediately memorized.
Don't forget. Another one of the things that we get retconned later on is that not only did she cast that, but she also cast a spell in addition to that then and there that forever protects Gideon from Cressida specifically. We didn't see it, but she did it.
Yeah. It feels like the Ruhn that passed out and the Ruhn that woke up afterwards are two completely different people.
Yes.
It feels like we went into this series with what we thought was this strong, independent, very much proficient character.
And normal.
Yes.
Right. She was an everyday character.
And then at the end, we were coming towards an ending that was, I don't want to say fanatical, but it felt like a self-insert fanfic that someone wrote. And like, not even in a good way. It just kind of felt like this was an image, like an ideal image for Kristen Ciccerelli. Like this is the perfect ending, you know? This perfectly selfless and perfectly perfect character, and they just don't have any sort of connecting thread. They don't. It feels like it was from a different book.
Yes. Some of it also feels like the ideas for the characterization that happens later in the books came from someone else who does not have a handle on the characters.
Yes.
And what upset me was how many people, like, kind of come back for their cameo, right? Here comes Harrow. She gets reunited with Juniper. Juniper is technically a new character to us. Okay, cool. She gets rescued and they're there. And here comes Bart. You remember Bart from the first book? Because he was like a 1 to 2 throwaway line randomly at the opera house. Oh, surprise. He's gay and he's got a lover, Antonio, who just happens to be in the cult of the ancients that we threw away in like one paragraph about 10 chapters ago. Oh, and he happens to be a priest and in service to Wisdom. You remember Wisdom? Because Wisdom was the ancient who happened to trap herself here because she like royally messed up with the other queens and got the other queen killed. So she cursed herself and she's just been wandering around the earth for however long she's been doing that. Oh, I wonder who that could be. Oh, could it be Seraphine, who has just been young and has a weird kestrel-shaped brand on her neck? No, I don't think that it is. But surprise, it totally is. Ha ha ha, I got you.
To be fair, I was shocked by the Seraphine reveal. I did not pick up on that. No, you were not. No, I knew that Seraphine probably like cursed herself and like she was going to wither and die, a la Mother Gothel from Tangled. Once once Ruhn dies. But I really did think that I didn't think she was Wisdom. That did not connect for me.
Oh, wow. No, it like connected like for me. First off, we have all the talks where she's like, why are you so young? Why do you look exactly like that? And she's like, oh, I did a thing long ago and technically I cursed myself until I make it right. And then we like a few chapters later, we get that little preamble from Antonio about, oh, there's supposedly this tale that Wisdom trapped herself in a body. And I'm like, oh, it's Seraphine. And then a couple chapters later, it was Seraphine.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel satisfied. I don't feel satisfied with that reveal. I don't feel satisfied with anything that has happened.
Either way, it wasn't satisfying either because it still felt like it was out of left field. I somehow missed the connections. I saw it happen. I was like, huh. That's the one thing I did not expect to get added to this shit sandwich. But here it is, right on top of the mayo.
I think what we needed was to have met Antonio in the first half or heard the tale of Wisdom in the first half and consider it throwaway information. That it's just like, oh, here's a statue of Wisdom. I once heard a tale that she had blah, 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 blah. And then little things that Seraphine does should have been sprinkled throughout where like there should have been the line about her like, oh yeah, I'm cursed to be so young and beautiful. Ha 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 ha. And then like some chapter later seeing the casting scar on her neck. Oh, what is that? Oh, it's just, ha 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 ha. And moving on as opposed to here's information A, here's information B, here's information C.
Yeah. I feel like a more subtle way to do that was maybe try to play up her almost advisory role to the witches. Like showcase her as someone whose wisdom is sought out, who, is advising people on the way to go and the choices to make. And that would have been a great subtle thing to, weave throughout the entire book if we saw more of her and more of literally anyone that's not Ruhn or Gideon.
That's one of the things that I also wrote down to complain about is how little we actually see the plethora of characters, right? You've got Seraphine, Cressida, Juniper, Harrow, Bart, Antonio, Noah Creed, Lila Creed, this random nameless witch that shows up when Ruhn tries to take a train and actually kidnaps Gideon and she's going to shoot him. Like, that's a lot. And they don't show up equally. They just kind of like, you pulled a name out of a hat and that's who's going in this scene.
Yeah.
Because you forgot about them. And
it feels like it's an ensemble cast, but you turned off the lights on everyone except for Gideon and Ruhn, and you're only seeing them.
Yes.
Like you'll only see them occasionally when they pass through the spotlight or behind the spotlight.
Yep. And then anytime they pass behind the spotlight gets a little smaller. And we just continue to focus on Gideon and Ruhn. You have all of that. There's another like throwaway retcon. Ghostwalker doesn't work on animals. Okay, cool. Wouldn't that have been something nice to have when we first saw Ghostwalker getting cast? Oh, yay, Lady's not dead. Very happy that Lady wasn't dead, right? And the very first spell that Ruhn finds when she sneaks into Wintersea, she gets into the casting room, she's going through all the books, dropping them everywhere because suddenly she's the worst sneak thief ever. And And the first spell that she finds is one to summon an ancient. I'm like, cool. That's going to come up.
So that's what we're doing. Yeah. That was my spellbook ex machina test to you, by the way.
Yep-o.
Yep.
It just all over the place. Like that could have been where we got, not necessarily where it ultimately came on the timeline, but in a scene akin to that could have been where we got the information about wisdom. And we didn't.
Yep.
So then Gideon shows up. She smacks him over the head because she's like, Bloodguard. And he finds out about the scars on her back. And in this very not well done mirroring of each other, she doesn't want him to know about her scar. Just like he didn't want her to know about the curse. And I'm like, have we not learned to talk to each other yet? And the answer is no.
How could they? The plot wouldn't advance otherwise.
I really needed the relationship between the two of them to come to its hit on the Arcadia, so that for the back half they could have been working together, having other issues, right? Like the issue where Ruhn's like, no, I don't want to fight, I want to run away. That easily could have come up even if they were actively working together. And then they have some emotional thing happen, so that the actual plot of the book could have come through more. Right now, the plot is like scenery in the background. Like we said about Cressida, right? She's just clouds in the rearview mirror. She should be so much more present and threatening, and she's not. Noah Creed also should be so much more present and threatening. He's another one that apparently wanted to sleep with Ruhn, so now he's going to execute her because she didn't sleep with him.
Apparently so, yeah.
Because everyone that meets Ruhn wants to sleep with her.
And that's what rational people do. If they can't, have sex with you, they'll kill you. Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what? Plot-wise, Noah's urge to kill Ruhn and Gideon easily could have been remaining jealous of Gideon because his father treated him more like a son than he did, and Ruhn is a witch. And it could have ended there. But it was just another, well, Ruhn's really pretty. She's not like other girls, she's so pretty.
The Mary Sue was thick in the later half of this book.
Yes, it was. I was so mad. It took me I only finished this yesterday. And I waited until 2 hours ago before we sat down to record to start my notes because I did not want to go back through this book to put my notes on paper. I am normally so excited to get my quotes down, to get my thoughts down, to note what really felt like it brought things alive. And I like almost every note in here is something that was like, and this killed it for me, and this killed it for, like, not a good killed it, right? This is a bad killed it. This is a there are bodies everywhere killed it. and that is upsetting. It's upsetting as a reader because I never want to walk away from a book and be like, wow, that was bad trash. I want to walk away and be like, this was good trash, and give it to my friends. I identify as a raccoon as it comes to reading, right? Like, I know that what I read is trash, but it's tasty and delicious. I don't want to give you rat poison trash. I want to give you, like, recently thrown out food trash.
I was really hopeful for this book because the first one did surprise me with how great it was. We went in knowing it was trash, and I had heard it was trash, and I was just like, this is not going to be a fun experience, but I'll read it for the podcast. It'll make good content.
Right? I didn't lie to you.
And I was pleasantly surprised that, like, Heartless Hunter was like, okay, yeah, I could get into this. I'm obsessed with this. I like this. I like the little bits. And then we get to Rebel Witch, and it's like everything's been thrown out the window, and we don't get to see anything pay off at all.
You know what? It really reminded me of, Rob might have heard this skit. I'm fairly certain, Maggie, that you did not. You don't strike me as an NPR aficionado.
No.
But NPR used to do a lot of, like, English major skits. And there was one about a guy who was struggling to write, and so he eventually you're going to have to just write humor, Dan, and you'll write a book about some surrealist BS humor, and you'll call it Do Chickens Have Boogers? And it'll sell 1 million copies, and that's what's ultimately going to skyrocket you. And then a year later, you're going to write something really serious and beautiful, but your publisher in inch-high letters is going to insist on putting author of Do Chickens Have Boogers? And that's what this felt like.
Yeah.
Was that they were relying solely on Kristen's name, and it came out like a year afterwards, so it's just bam bam, so it feels less like art and more like capitalism. And in chai letters, do chickens have boogers?
Yes. It does feel a lot like I'm more than solidified on the idea that this was supposed to be a singular book, a singular thick book, but a single one, a one. And then at some point they're like, no, you got to cut it here at what is supposed to be like the midpoint, and you're going to add a second book instead. You're going to make it a duology. And then all of the beginning and all of the middle is just to fluff it out. And then we get bam, 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 the story in the last third.
Yeah.
Because the last 8 chapters, I was like, okay, there's less than 100 pages here. How the hell are we going to complete a war, a rebellion, an uprising, dethroning, killing Ruhn, all of that, and come to peace? And it was just
all the chapters where they're actively like planning, okay, we have to do this and that and find this and do that, just honestly felt like, yeah, I'll make my own rebellion with blackjack and hookers.
Yeah.
It didn't feel well thought out. It just felt like childish.
It's such a shame because this concept was so fun, so good. I love the idea of the witch and the witch hunter. I love opposing sides like that. You know, we read Serpent and Dove. We loved it.
But Serpent and Dove was another one that I felt was just cut in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Because the last chapter is literally in the middle of a conversation. And it's just, well, now you have to wait for the next book. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, I didn't finish that series. I probably should. But, like, I love the idea. I love the concept. The world building was interesting. And it felt like it was the beginnings of something great.
Yes.
And then it missed the last step on the stairs and went tumbling down.
There were also, obviously, more things for me to complain about in the back end. Particularly after Gideon has realized that Ruhn has been sexually assaulted. The sequence is basically man sees woman who was sexually assaulted, confirms she was almost sexually assaulted, and then goes to his own point of view and goes, something was wrong with her. That's what he says. Something was wrong with Ruhn. Yeah, man, she has gone through some traumatic shit. And you're just sitting there like, I wonder what it could be.
Just shoehorned plot device obliviousness. And it's just, it's so frustrating. And like, this is why I hate miscommunication tropes so much. Because they are so rarely done well. And it's always dragged out. And it's always unnecessarily done so. And it, like, they had the miscommunication trope going from page 1 of Heartless Hunter until, like, the last part, like, the last 10 chapters of this.
Until page 405 of Rebel Witch.
Yeah.
When she's finally like, hey, one time you asked me if I want babies, and I want 3 kids, because I happen to have seen 3 kids in a vision that I especially have with my special royal witch blood powers that I didn't have in the first book, because I am the secret heir that nobody knew about. And we're gonna have babies, and they're going to look like your beautiful face and my beautiful hair.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's that scene.
Verbatim.
And then Harrow sends the note. She's like, hey, I found the bodies. They're at the crossroads. And the crossroads happens to be like a weird whirlpool-y BS thing. And we finally have the confrontation. Yeah. But like,
it still feels like Cressida's not even on the page at that point. It still feels like she is just this ominous cloud. Like, Ruhn said she is seconds away from reaching them no less than 5 times. Leading up to her death. And it was just bullshit. That's all it was. It was just
every single moment was bullshit.
It feels like those moments in over dramatized romance series, like in some K-dramas that you see, where a character is falling for 2 episodes, literally falling to the ground for 2 episodes, but in slow motion because the love interest is there to catch them. But you have to sit there in anticipation, waiting to see if they actually catch them, and their hands will brush. And then it just never happens because she just falls to the ground, or there's a third person that shows up. And it just is not, it's dragged on so obviously, and it's so frustrating.
Have you ever seen, either in their entirety or clips of, Bollywood remakes of popular films.
I don't think I have, no.
So, for a lot of the, like, superhero ones, you know, like, people are shooting bullets and, like, they're dancing it away, like, these big gestures, and that's all I could see as Cressida's coming across, because she gets another step closer, and she's just, like, growling at Gideon and cutting herself. That should have been terrifying, and I was just like, all I can see is that bullets aren't hitting you, which means you're not in danger. Bullets aren't hitting Gideon, which means he's not in danger. Ruhn also apparently secretly puts casting marks on his cheeks as she's dying.
But he doesn't realize. He doesn't know happened until later.
Yeah, he doesn't know happened until later, so he didn't realize that there's blood on his face. She doesn't tell us about it in her point of view until after she comes back, and she's only dead for like a chapter.
And a chapter that's only like 2 pages long, to be fair.
Yes, she's dead for 3 pages. And there are two sections that should have been dragged out so that we could have been like, oh my god, are they actually? And the first one was when Gideon is supposed to be executed. We should not have seen Gideon again until she hit him over the head.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
And that should have been us finding out. And then you could have gone to his point of view and been like, well, I was supposed to die, but, you know, Cressida invaded, so here I am as an extra man for the Blood Guard. The other part is when Ruhn dies.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have gotten crap. She dies, and then Gideon should have told us a whole bunch of stuff that happened next. Instead of 3 pages, we grab Cressida easily, I might add. Right? There's barely a fight there. We put her on the ground, and we draw some spell marks on her and Ruhn, and we stab her in the chest. There should have been chapters worth of fight between Cressida, Gideon, the rebellions, because this is basically like the battle of the 5 armies from The Hobbit, just happening with all the witches and the blood hunters and the rebellion and the, like...
Yeah.
But instead...
It's 3 paragraphs, and that's it. Not even, I don't think.
Yeah. It just... You know that, like, soundbite on TikTok where it's like, I'm alive! I'm dead!
Yes!
I'm alive!
Yes!
I'm dead.
That's exactly how those last chapters felt.
Like, the last chapters of this book, I could think of memes for every single thing. There's, like, all this onomatopoeia in it, right? Like, I texted it to you and Katie. But there's a whole bunch of, like, bang, 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 and clang, clang, clang. And all I could think of at the clang, clang, clang was, ooh, oh, you capping. Drip, splash, water, drip, drip, splash, water, drip. Like, that's not the kind of image that should be coming up in my head.
In what is supposed to be a very tense moment. What's supposed to be the climax of the book.
Bang, bang, bang. Oh, you capping.
It was just so underwhelming. There was so much that it could have been, that it could have done so great. It could have been so tense and dark and terrifying at the end with Cressida cutting herself open, and then the fight, and then the subsequent, you know, revivifying Ruhn. Like,
yeah.
All we get is a single line of she gets stabbed in the heart and they watched as the life returned into Ruhn, and that was it. We don't even get like any kind of description of how the spell is affecting Cressida, how it's affecting Ruhn, how it feels creepy and otherworldly because you're doing something that's against the laws of nature.
We could have gotten Ruhn in the afterlife talking to her grandmother. Like,
so much.
We could have gotten so much there. We could have had her talking to Alex. Instead, we get ancient ex machina. Who can't be corrupted, right? That's what she said. She's like, oh, I'm not afraid of corruption. I can't be corrupted.
She basically goes, I'm divine, bitch.
And then she stabs Cressida. Snap, snap, snap. And then, you know, new year, new regime. Everybody's been voted into wherever they're supposed to be. I'm like, okay. It reads like everything up until they got off the Arcadia is one piece. Everything from the time they get off of the ship to Gideon getting executed is another piece. Everything from Ruhn getting whipped to being back on a ship on her way back to the Republic feels like another.
That just felt so unnecessary.
Everything to do with Aurelia is ultimately irrelevant. There could have been literally any other reason for Ruhn to go back to Cascadia, and it could have just been she rescued Gideon from getting killed by Cressida, and then they went on the onto the Arcadia. That could have been it, and that would have made sense. But no, we got Soren in there. We got wedding dress shopping in there. We got trying to kiss other girls in there.
Listen, I can't hate on the wedding boutique scene because that was actually one of my favorite scenes in the entire book. That was a very good scene.
I will say that was a good scene. Yes. That was a good scene. And then the back half was just like, I didn't need over a third of this in the back half. And what I did needed to be up sooner.
Yeah.
There's just so much of it. As I keep saying, there's so much of it that was just like playground logic. It was just, oh, that happened and I didn't think about it. And instead of going back and editing this manuscript, I would rather just do a little retcon line right here. And that's that. And it's like, girl, it's not published yet. You can go back and fix this. I want to put this on record. I would rather have to wait 5 years for a good sequel than go through this again.
Yeah. So careful what you wish for. That's how we get, Patrick Rothfuss with and God, I forgot his name, Game of Thrones and
George R. R. Martin. But George R. R. Martin isn't because he's like constantly working on it. George R. R. Martin's is because he sits down to his computer and he's like, what are words? Which he has admitted to over and over and over again. And as a writer, I greatly appreciate other writers coming out on social media and being like, yeah, I struggle to get into the zone. And I'm like, yes, it's not just me. Ha 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 ha. But no, you know what I mean? Like, I would rather you spend the time to make this what the first one was so that I stay in love with this world and this work and your work and you than you put something out that just has your name on it.
Yeah. This is why I respect Susan Dennard so much, because she's got like 3 unfinished series, right? But she is slowly working through them. And she has been very open about the fact that she has struggled with manuscript drafts. She has struggled with finding the story. She had trouble finding the time to write between being a new mom, kid getting sick, COVID, all that. And it's been a couple years since some of these series, last installment came out. But it doesn't matter because I know she's working on it and I know that she's delivered great product. And I know that whatever's going to come, whenever it comes, is going to be great. And I will be excited for it. And I would much rather have waited 2-3 years for Rebel Witch and got a product that was ironed out, that was satisfying, that I could have easily put this on my top 5 books shelf and have come back to and reread over and over and over again, like I do with so many other things. And this just kind of turned into one of those things where I'm like, I'm going to look back at this in 6 months and be like, that was not a good time, and then continue on with my life.
Like, I just keep thinking about how we started some of the episodes and we were just like, oh, like it was so
exciting,
good.
Yes.
And the next week we were like, and the week after that we were,
It just makes me sad. It makes me sad and disappointed. Not angry. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed because it could have been so good. It could have been great. And I know you're angry.
I am angry. Listen, this is like the 4th book that it started off really strong, right? Because we vote on whether or not we're going to go through with it off of the first 10 chapters. And to be fair, we're all adults, and I think we have a pretty good grasp of the first 10 chapters. I'm obviously going to like or dislike this book. And this is like the 4th one that we have read for the podcast that by the time we get to the back half, we have been incredibly disappointed. And some of the disappointments have been like little things, like, oh, she's kissing the wrong boy, she's wet and she has a pulse, you can suddenly talk to yourself in the future past because you're high, that was Remember Me Tomorrow, like, and they were just little things that got added to the back and we were like, no, I didn't like that. But this was like 40 chapters of things I didn't like.
Yeah.
That is disappointing. That is reading something for school. And like, because we had already recorded so much of the series, I wanted to make sure that we finished it.
Yep.
Which is why we are doing this last all-encompassing episode. And like, we only read 10 chapters at a time, and we have just been more and more disappointed each time. I can't imagine how much screaming would happen if we just said, you know what, we'll continue going 10 chapters a week, because that would have been 3 more weeks.
Mm-hmm. I just felt so numb by the end of it because of nothing but these rapid fire chapters leading to disappointment and weird setups and points being made that just retconned or completely changed everything that, was going to happen. And I was just numb at the end. I flipped the last page of the book and I was like, all right, time for the next one.
Thank God it's over.
Yeah, thank God it's over. I'm never going to think about this again if I can help it.
If I can help it is right. For the first half of the book, Alex is dead, right? That's the repeated mantra. Oh, my dead brother Alex. Oh, Alex, my best friend who is now dead.
That and anyone can betray anyone. That too.
And anyone can betray anyone, and that just keeps going all the way through. But not if I betray her first. But not if I betray him first. And I just want to sit there and grab you and shake you. And then we get off of that, and the new repetition becomes, "Oh, I can't believe he betrayed me," when he didn't. There is this is part of the miscommunication stuff. I hate it. I hate it. Like, you can do a single miscommunication, and I feel that that's fine. But after that, this was 2 books worth of miscommunication.
Yeah, like
it's a lot of miscommunication.
It's like one thing if it's a singular moment of miscommunication, and then they spent a portion of time apart believing in those miscommunications, sort of like what could have happened in the beginning of this one, after it opened up. But they had every single opportunity to talk. And the plot just kept getting in the way, and not in the fun way.
Not only the plot, but both of them. Do you remember the scene in the first book in Heartless Hunter when he talks about growing up in Lowtown, and she's like, "Oh, well, Lowtown's, it's quaint." And he turns around and he's like, "Quaint's a word that rich people use to describe poor places when the blah, 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 blah." And she's like, "Are you so determined to misunderstand me?" And then they just ran with that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Through 450 pages. There are times in there when they're apart, when Ruhn is like, "Oh, no, Gideon betrayed me." And then she finds out later that he didn't. Like, when they finally get off the island and they're going back to the mainland, and Aurelia tosses her the ring box, and she's like, "Yeah, surprise, Gideon helped us get off." I want to scream at her, like, you couldn't figure that out when the Blood Guard retreated?
Yeah.
Which is another thing that just goes against the characterization. Like, if you set up a smart character, a witty character, a character who is not only intelligent and actively trying to learn something above her standing, and you show that to us over and over and over again, to suddenly make her
dumb for the
oblivious,
for the reasoning of oblivious for the point of drawing out the word count.
Yeah. Like, what was the point of Ruhn even getting away? It was only to break Gideon's curse.
Yep.
When, meanwhile, if Cressida was already on her way, Ruhn could have met up with Cressida and then tried to steal the spellbook and gotten beaten and done everything, blah, 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 blah. So, and also Cressida didn't need Aurelia.
Nope.
What was the point? What was the point? Why are they here?
Yeah.
I feel like if I had taken this to a workshop, if I had taken this to any class workshop, at least 6 people would have told me that, like, 7 of these characters had to go. They don't serve any purpose. That there's a whole bunch of scenes and plot lines that are just like, why are they there? I just want good literature.
Yeah, I just want to read something that feels good and makes me feel good while reading it. And not in a weird sexual way, just enjoying literature for literature's sake and for good writing and good prose. I am not that kind of bibliophile. Anyway, the best part of this book was that it ended, and now we can move on to the next one. And I feel like that's really mean to say, but I'm over it. I'm done. This is worse than like a show jumping the shark.
In all of my stories, regardless of the medium in which I consume my story, I expect good, well thought out product. This felt like release day for Cyberpunk 77.
Ooh, yeah.
Where there was just a whole bunch of glitches, and like the story was there, but then there was just a whole bunch of other stuff that just got in the way and didn't make sense and broke the game.
Yeah.
That's what I feel here. And honestly, I cannot recommend this one. Heartless Hunter, absolutely. If I were to recommend Rebel Witch, it would be with like a bunch of chapters cut out. Like I would have to do the good parts version.
Just cut all those unnecessary scenes and just smush it into a little novella that it should have been, and that's it. I hate this feeling because I don't like going into a book and hating it at the end. I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
I want to go in and like it. I want to be able to recommend it. And it's heartbreaking. And
yeah,
I always feel like guilty because I ended up hating something. And like part of that is me just being a people pleaser and wanting to love everything that comes in front of me. But I also I can't.
It's also because when you're a reader, right? Like there are people that read books and then there are people who are readers, capital R. Books save you. They are your escape. They are your home. They are how you deal with your everyday life. They are the way that you relax. They are the way that you process. And to have one let you down is such a disappointment, is so gut-wrenching because no one wants to walk away and be like, wow, I hated this book. I mean, there's some people that do because that's their whole platform. But at the very least, the people on this podcast don't want to be like, wow, I hated this book. I don't go up to producer Rob and go, wow, this book was really shitty and I can't wait to tell you about it on Thursday. Like, the best discussions we have on here are when we're like, wow, this really happened and the statement was beautiful and the setup was really great and I loved the pacing and I just want to read more. I just want more. And by the time we hit chapter 40, we were like, I just want to stop. I just want to not read this book anymore.
No.
That's not good. One of the big things that I really miss book conventions. I miss book festivals. I miss going to midnight releases and just talking with book nerds and going back and forth about the speculation. Like one of my favorite things on here is to speculate with you guys about what's coming up next. Because it's fun and it gets those creative juices going and it makes me want to go and work on my own stories and I get excited about it. It's like being around other writers and storytellers and other artists. There is an energy that we put off into the room and we want to just get something done on our own. And when I read something that I don't like, it sucks that away. Because I literally become angry at it. I'm angry that I put time into it, that I invested something in this, and then I didn't get out of it what I put into it. Scenes at the end there should have been gut-wrenching. When Gideon shoots Ruhn, I should have been like, oh my god, Maggie's going to cry her eyes out, right? Like, there should have been no doubt about it. Instead, I was like, yeah, that's what I saw coming. And 3 pages later, she's back, so I'm just like, okay. Well then, like she beat Jesus's respawn time.
Jessica.
They at least moved Jesus's body. They didn't even do that for Ruhn. Grieving, not even required for her death by other characters. If anybody wants to, not stand next to me for the next couple of days to avoid the lightning bolt, that's totally fine and understandable.
Just ending this book with a resounding
That's a wrap on this episode of Booked All Night. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation, so don't forget to rate the show, drop a comment, and share your thoughts in the episode poll. And remember, subscribing means you'll never miss an episode or interview as we launch into more amazing stories together. Booked All Night is produced by Rob Cook and his cats. So when you share your favorite episode, be sure to tag us at Booked All Night Pod on Threads, Instagram, and Facebook, and say hi to our guy in the sound booth. For more information, like reading schedules and dates on our upcoming interviews, check out the link in the show notes. That's link.bio/bookedallnight. lnk.bio/bookedallnight for those of you who don't check the show notes. Until next time, my little Libernauts, this is Jessica Mary, Kaylee, Magdalyn Ann, and producer Rob signing off and reminding you to stay booked all night.